see what professors in fact do for a living, and we are contractually obligated to spend a quarter of our time doing research and publication. Usually just see us in front of class, and we see you, and we normally only see our colleagues sitting around a conference table, doing really boring stuff, and having meetings. And there are we found that there are few opportunities on campus for us to share the other things that we do, which to many of us is why we got into this in the first place. We have something to say. We have things that, questions we want to answer, research that we need to do, and people that we want to share it with. We've had a number of really interesting lectures so far as part of the series. Just this semester we've had a guy from the economics department share a biography that he had written showing how the humanities scholarship is impacting other parts of the campus. The October brown bag lecture was held on November 1st because we had a former student from UH come and talk about the book that will be published next fall. And today we're really, really lucky to have also a former UH student, UH Manoa student, and now a current Honolulu Community College professor here to not just share some of his work, but launch perhaps what will be remembered as probably the most earth-shaking, earth-shattering book that's ever been written about this place. It's a fantastic book. Just before I introduce him, I'll tell you a little bit about where this came from. It started back in the 1990s when English departments were starting to not only value but seek out local voices, indigenous voices, voices that are unique to certain places, connecting place with story and things like that. And this resulted in things like Bamboo Ridge and a lot of literature that was written in Pidgin or Hawaii Creole English. This is around the time that our speaker today was an undergrad at UH Manoa. He wound up taking an Asian American literature course taught by a woman who got her PhD at Berkeley, where a lot of this movement of local language and local lit was born. And he looked at the reading list and he said, okay, it's got Chinese people in San Francisco, it's got Japanese Americans in this place, it's got this. And he said, well, where's me? Where's my voice? Where is the local guy who grew up in Honolulu on the windward side of Oahu? And we're talking about somebody who's never really interested in writing in the first place. But that question bothered him enough that he turned it into his master's degree thesis, which resulted in this book, which is called Tattoo. This book led to Chris being awarded the Elliott Cades Award. And there are two versions of the Elliott Cades Award. It's the highest honor for a writer here in Hawaii, writing local lit. One is for established writers, the other is for emerging writers. And it's awarded to emerging writers because it wants to validate that they've done something spectacular, but it wants to push them forward to do things even better. And Chris validated the decision of the judges by quickly coming out with The Queen of Tears, and then a few years later, Bolo Head Row, and then just 3 years ago, Mililani Malka, not finished yet, and then just last week, The Point of Good, which we'll be reading from tonight. In other words, you have not just one of the more prolific, but one of the more skilled and certainly one of the more interesting writers that's ever written about this place. And doing so in a real, authentic local voice. Now, just before we have him up here, we have a couple of thank yous to make. Lou Zicknick, the chair of English at Hawaii Community College, was able to come up with the funding somehow to fly Chris over here from Honolulu. And we also have in the resentment has resulted in a really spectacular story that a lot of people are not going to want to hear, but needs to be said. Thank you again for coming tonight, and let's welcome Chris McKinney.
Sheesh, feel all pressured out now. I guess I'd like to start off by talking a little bit about the sort of transition that I found I had to make from writing the first book and the subsequent books. Essentially, like a lot of first novels, the tattoo was semi-autobiographical. There's that old cliche about writing, write what you know, and kahalu is what I knew. So I wrote the book and it was well received, and I wanted to write another one. And the second one essentially is a story about a Korean American family in Honolulu. My mom's Korean. So that you could say in a way that this book in certain places is a little bit semi-autobiographical too. It's not mine, or not autobiographical, but biographical. Me picking my mother's brain, my grandmother's brain about the Korean American experience, the immigration experience. What essentially happens over the course of time, and I continue to write books, is that I was basically running out of material. I mean, I've exhausted everything that I've grown up. I felt like I just about exhausted everything I've grown up with, my mother's experience. And what happened was that I had to start doing more and more research for my books. So when it comes to this book, I had to do more research for this book than the others. And because, I mean, basically, Raymond, sorry, I'm zoning out here. So basically, I mean, I still wanted to stick to Hawaii as setting, and I still felt like I had issues to discuss when describing and setting story in this place. And I wanted to do something big. I wanted to tell a big story. What that meant was that I wanted to delve into, for example, politics. So what I had to do is I had to research sort of how power in Hawaii works among politicians. I knew that one of my main characters was going to be a cop, so that meant that I had to talk to various police officers, get in touch with them, some I knew, and just to get an idea or a sense of what it's like to be a cop in Honolulu. Other things occur in the book that I had to do research on. There's how social services work. The book essentially starts with 3 kids growing up on a derelict city bus, and their mother's a drug addict, grandmother's an invalid, and social services comes and snatches the kids away. So I had to find out how that works, I had to research how that works, what happens, how kids are placed, and what happens when you're dealing with, for example, a teenage runaway. What's the process after that? So one of the things that I'm proud of when it comes to this novel is that it's realistic. I mean, a lot of these things that appear in this book are they don't just resemble terminology or the way things work in Hawaii, but that's actually how it works. And I guess what I would like to start with is political speech at a fundraiser. So one of these 3 children ends up adopted by a state senator who decides he's going to run for governor. He's a Republican, he's going to run for governor. So he's on the Big Island, he's in Kona, and he's about to speak to a crowd, and it's his sort of vision of what's wrong with Hawaii. The ballroom at the Hilton Waikoloa on the Big Island is filled with more white people than Boyd has ever seen in his life. Bullet-head white men with steel-rimmed glasses, small beer guts hanging over their gold-buckled belts. Papaya-shaped white women in muumuus capped with perm-dyed thinning hair. Silver and turquoise earrings hang from their ears. Young white dudes in striped shirts with their sleeves rolled up. Veiny curly-haired forearms clasped with waterproof watches. Tanned wives and girlfriends wearing fluorescent bikinis under their thin dresses. Man, they talked a lot. Shane, who was wearing an aloha shirt and purple and white flower-lace grateful he is that Charles and Helen adopted him. Talks about how he's going to an Ivy League school, thanks to nodding life lessons about ladder climbing, bootstraps, and our Lord God. The speech is stiff, robot tiki-like, but Shane's been this way for a week now. If Shane were Boy's kid, he'd slap him across the back of his head and tell him to get over it. After Shane finishes introducing him, Shane being the adopted son of the guy running for governor, Charles, looking all tangled with lace, steps up to the podium holding a pink pastry box. He waves as the applesauce gets softer. Applause, sorry. Boy, standing in the back of the ballroom, is sweating by a silver punch bowl, ladles juice in a glass, and drinks sweetened passion orange, as Charles thanks Shane and tells the audience how proud he is of his son. Thank you, says Charles, as he adjusts the mic on his flower-printed collar. Many towns across the state claim that theirs is God country, but we all know that God's hand is in Kona, building still far beyond the sixth day. It's a pleasure to be home. Applause. The Noddings have a house on every island except Niihau, so to them, just about everywhere in Hawaii is home. Now, as you can see, I brought props with me today. Charles lifts the pink pastry box so that everyone can see it. He opens the box and pulls out a white dome-shaped barbecue pork bun. The crowd is silent, curious. This, says Charles, is a manapua. Seems harmless enough, right? A Cantonese pastry filled with chewed-up pork brought over by migrant Chinese workers from plantation days. Back then, field workers would bring home a pink box identical to this one for Sunday breakfast before getting the kids ready for church. His voice booms and Boy wonders if he ever needs the mic clipped to his collar. A couple of generations later, says Charles, the arrival of the Manapua Man, a guy in an ice cream truck driving up your block, carnival music ringing, barefoot kids chasing the truck, loose change clanging in their pockets. Charles reaches a hand in his pocket and shakes imaginary change. He clears his throat and continues. But now, there are no more plantations, no more Manapua Man. Let me tell you folks something. Today, the manapua is being used to duplicitous purpose. Today, the manapua greases more wheels in Hawaii than Castro. A handful in the crowd laugh, others frown curious. The clanging of dishes dies down. Even the waiters and waitresses holding wicker baskets of purple taro bread and stainless steel coffee pots are listening. Every time you need something from some state office, you better bring a box of manapua. You need an environmental task for a construction project, better bring manapua. You need rezoning for a baby strip mall you saved for years and wanted to develop, you better bring manapua. You need to put a new sign in front of your auto body shop, you better bring manapua to each of the dozen or so state offices approval must move through. The crowd nods. And what happens if you don't bring this succulent leaven mixed of yeast and baking powder? Well, your perfectly reasonable requests can get lost in the shuffle by incompetent state workers who are either lazy or inept because they were appointed on the lone qualification of being a cousin of so-and-so. If you do not bring the manapua and bow down to these bureaucrats, your requests will get stuck in the system, passed by giant corporations with giant pockets who give these fat cats the best manapua of all. Charles rips the manapua he's holding in half and pulls a $100 bill from it with the hand flare of a magician. He holds up the bill so all can see. The crowd cheers. The waiters and waitresses put their baskets and pots on oval trays stationed by each table, and give Charles their full attention. Charles waits for them, nods at one in particular, a Japanese woman with glasses, probably 10 years past retirement age, probably a die-hard supporter of his opponent, Maxine Honda. He smiles at her, then goes on. It's disgraceful if you think about it. A half-century ago, maybe you'd bring a box of manapua to Uncle for helping you fix your truck. Maybe you'd bring a box over to Auntie because she helped you prepare for a luau for your child's birthday. Maybe you'd bring a box over to Tutu thanking her for watching the kids after school. The giving of the manapua used to be a tradition of gratitude. But my opponents, they somehow corrupted this pure custom. The manapua is now just cold, hard currency. It's a key to the backroom door. It's a mafia-sino passed from a friend of ours to another. But not anymore, not on my watch. My friends, when I become governor, the reign of the manapua will be over. A standing ovation. Boy puts down his punch and claps too. A Hawaiian waiter wearing a black bow tie and vest The only one not applauding pushes a plastic cart, stops by boy, and restocks the ice with a shovel. Pretty good speech so far, yeah, says boy. Waiter shrugs as he shovels ice into the silver bowl. I don't even like Manapua, he says. But I guess if had the kind with money inside would be mean. So the Manapua thing isn't actually, it's not something that came out of my imagination. It's me talking to specifically a friend of mine who's the head of an Office of Environmental Quality Control in Honolulu. And so I just sat down with her and I asked her, so tell me, give me the rundown, how does politics work? And she said, it's all about the Manapua. And she said, if you want to get anything done, it's all about the Manapua. And she talked about Super Ferry and all of that kind of stuff and how that was, I mean, that was an example of that. Also an example of this sort of, unfortunately the cronyism and who you know and all of that, because, I mean, the environmental impact statement for the Super Ferry was like a 5-page document that took the person who had been appointed months to write, and the person was appointed because that person was a cousin of somebody. And I'm not even saying one way or another how I felt about the Super Ferry or anything like that, but just the process was sort of ridiculous, and the whole Manapua thing is ridiculous. And the sign thing is a perfect example. In fact, in Honolulu, if you want to get a sign put up in front of your small business, you have to go through like 12 steps, and it has to go. So, of course, this is a speech from a Republican governor who's sort of trying to challenge, I guess you could say, the Old Boy Network. But yeah, so I was glad that I had found that bit of research on. Better bring Manapua, man, if you want to get anything done. Now, the next portion that I want to read is the cop stuff. And I knew that I wanted to create a cop character that wasn't your sort of typical, noir detective character. I mean, I wanted him to be a low-ranking police officer, just a beatman, a patrolman. And so what I did was I called a friend of mine who had happened to be stationed in Kailua at the time. So I was talking to him and sort of getting him to walk me through the whole process, what his shift is like, what he has to deal with. So the main character, Boy, eventually grows up to be a cop. So this is Boy as an adult. The first part of the first act of the book, I guess you could say, deals with the characters as children. And then they grow up and Boy grows up to become a police officer. And this is the opening of that chapter. So we're flashing forward to Boy, the main character, as an adult. First watch, still morning. The crumbs are everywhere. It's September, Kono weather, and homeless mutter to themselves while they push bum-wheel shopping carts to their beach tents. Yellow-fingered chronics behind steel-barred windows pass around lab flats, souped up to smoke meth. Pyro bums hide behind the dumpsters, ready to set today's trash on fire. It's District 4, Sector 2, Kailua, or as the cops call it, Krailua. A now 23-year-old boy doesn't even know who he hates more, the crumbs or the howlies who call 911 every time they catch a whiff of dog shit from a neighbor's yard. Krailua, Lani Cry, Hawaii Cry, all filled with howly crybabies. Most didn't even grow up in Hawaii. Boy is 2 years in and doesn't have his own beat. He's not a motorman yet either. The cops who patrol in their privately owned cars, free gas, $600 a month for expenses. He's a swingman in a blue and white, a slave to sergeants chasing rank, company men who hunt for DUIs, pull over a drunk driver, and call Boy to do the arrest and paperwork. More DUIs, more court, more overtime. One speeding ticket a night, one DUI a month, and guys like Sergeant Nakasone are set lieutenant in no time. Boy likes first watch the best. 10 p.m. to 7 a.m., OT and special duty friendly, the workhorse shift. There's not enough OT for second watch, family watch as they call it, and even though third watch is best for meeting girls, Boy gets to pick Nina up from second grade every day, take her to ballet, help her with her homework before dropping her off at her mother's. Chastity Fu, forever rotating community college, F's and N's with shit-paid part-time work, welfare, the only thing preventing her from becoming a crumb herself. He'd like to scream some sense into this bitch, but he'd get ROPA, restriction of police authority, and lose his job. He's seen cops get roped when crazy girlfriends and wives threw around abuse-claim lies. And these cops had to give up everything, their houses, their children, half their paychecks just to settle. Being accused of domestic abuse is no joke in the HPD. Immediate suspension without pay, likely termination unless they bend to the wills of their angry women. And the charges didn't even have to be true. When Chastity took Nina in to get matching mother and daughter navel piercings, boy had they eat it. Sergeant Nakasone is calling him on the radio. The sun's about to rise, and it's time to dust bust some crumbs at Kailua Beach. When he gets there, Motorman Fukuda, a short, skinny Japanese who likes his toys, his boot knives, and tactical grappling hooks, adding to what's already nearly 20 pounds in gear, is shooting down a bum with pepper spray, while Beatman King, a Sandbox vet, rips his extendable NB, backing Fukuda up. Fukuda's wife just filed for divorce. The crumb must have detested him. Nothing the magic typewriter can fix. Boy steps out of his car. A woman wearing a wicker sun hat covers his daughter's eyes, then leads her to the car. To Boy's right, Na'amokulua, the Twin Islands barely visible. Sunup Kailua kayakers paddle to the islet 3/4 of a mile offshore. Boy turns back to the crumb, who's holding his palms up to his eyes, screaming. King cuffs him. What he did, asked Boy. Fukuda wipes sweat off his veiny forehead as King tosses the crumb in the back seat of his squad car. Making trouble with the early morning howlies, says his name is Jakey Perez, you know him. Boy takes out his brown notebook and looks through the pages, names of crumbs. No Jakey Perez, another chronic probably tossed out of his parents' house, or jail. Must be new, he says. These fuckers, says Fukuda, looking at the kayakers. Fuck, I grew up in Kailua. Don't even look the same anymore. President coming next month, says Boy. Fuck me. A presidential Kailua vacation meant Secret Service, undercover, SWAT, concrete squad car barricades with check stops, cops putting 7 miles on their odometers, moving their cars 10 feet back and forth to let people in and out. I'll tell you, Rapun, says Fukuda. Sometimes I just sit in my car 15 minutes before my shift starts, just mentally gearing up, you know? Swingman Rapun, he is Boy no more. Fuck, yells King from the squad car, stepping out, slamming the door. Boy and Fukuda turn around. He took a dump in the car. The crumb leans forward, grinning at Boy through the windshield, flat-nosed, raccoon-eyed, toothless, like he got punched in the face daily all his life. Take a shit while cuffed in the back of a squad car. That was the problem with these crumbs, every damn one of them. The purse snatchers, the women beaters, the chronics, the home invaders, the cop car defecators. They were pathetic. They didn't even know how to be no good. Boy could show them, but not Swingman Rapun. Rapun's a family man. Rapun has responsibilities. Rapun has uncles in the department he can't shame. Rapun knows the governor. So that's that scene, the opening scene, sort of an introduction to Boy as a cop. And again, you know, a lot of the stuff that's in there is I mean, it's not even really that made up. I mean, the cops that were stationed in Kailua call Kailua Kailua. They call Lani Kai Lani Cry. They call Hawaii Kai Hawaii Cry. The Ropa thing is real. The crumb they call homeless people or people who are obviously drug addicts. They call them crumbs. I mean that's the terminology. And the friend of mine who I spoke to, I mean, said that every day before he starts his shift, sometimes he pulls into the parking lot 15 minutes before it starts, and he just has to mentally gear up. And so I wanted to capture the sort of realism of that. So that would be another example of how sort of research influenced and impacted this book. Now, one of the other things that occurred when I was sort of thinking about what I wanted to write and the sort of issues that I wanted to touch on in the novel, something came to me, and this is an example of, I guess you could call it inadvertent research. Because what had happened was I was in Wailua on the north shore of Oahu, been there for years. And I was doing a movie shoot thing over there, and I decided to sort of take a break between scenes, and I took my dog for a walk. And as I was walking down Wailua Beach, the last time I had been there, it's a very rural, it's a very local place. But as I'm walking down the beach, the first people I spot while walking down there is this beautiful blonde trophy bride with beautiful blonde children. And I'm walking some more. Walk further down, 50 yards later, same thing. Beautiful blonde trophy bride, little blonde kids playing in the surf. I walked a mile and I didn't see one local person. And local people used to own that whole coast. So that was sort of like an issue that I wanted to address in the book. And so what I did was I wrote a scene with Boy, the main character. And Boy, let's just say Boy has anger issues. So, as the novel progresses and the more that he sees and the more that happens and the more the sort of the governor or soon-to-be governor exerts power on the people of Hawaii, Boy gets more and more angry as the novel progresses. So in this scene, he's walking, he's reunited with his brother Shane, and they're walking down the beach in Wailua. Okay. Oh, and also they're walking down the beach in Wailua because they're trying to chase Boy's foster father's horse who got away. So they're trying to chase the horse down. As Shane and Boy plowed up the coast, they passed renovated single-wall construction houses. Carpenters banged nails into new wood cut by table saws. Blonde, bikini-clad trophy brides frolic in the surf with their water-laden children. Some of them shoot Shane and Boy dirty looks and huddle their children closer to them. Shane's panting now as each step sinks into wet sand. Every time they catch up to Grover is the horse. The horse's name is Grover Cleveland. The horse sprints ahead. Stupid horse, says Shane, let's just go back. Man, says Boy, not even looking at the horse. Wide-eyed, he looks awake now. You seen one non-Howdy yet? This is frickin' Wailua too. Shane looks toward the houses, mostly gated, property lines marked with tall wood plank fences. He turns to the ocean. Kite surfers catch air harnessed in their $3,000 rigs. Shane has one coated with dust at home. He squints up shore. Where the hell did the horse go? He asks. It took off, says Boy. Let's just cut across, says Shane. That's trespassing, says Boy, watching the kite surfers. Private property. He looks at his watch. It's been 10 minutes. We can just head back the way we came. It's like 90 degrees out and the fucker is hardly sweating. Walking on the sand. Let's just cut across. Walk on the road, says Shane. Shane climbs up the sandy hill and marches toward the first non-gated backyard he sees. A tall, skinny man with long, bony legs is sitting on a porch. He's all teeth, elbows, and knees, like a once-upon-a-time third-string high school center who got thrown on the basketball team just because of his height. Now he's probably some Silicon Valley inventor, the kind Charles always gets donations from, who made his fortune in tech stocks and decided he wanted to live out the rest of his life on the beach in middle of nowhere, Hawaii. He's probably one of those guys who spent his 40s and 50s re-rolling his 30s. A new wife, new location, a new set of kids for each decade. Shane can respect that, but this guy, he's not returning the respect. He seems to be glaring at Shane. Doesn't he know that Shane can throw him through a window like a javelin? Boy puts his hand on Shane's shoulder. Let's go, he says. Fuck that Luna-looking motherfucker, says Shane. Shane walks on. Boy sighs and follows. The tall Holly wearing board shorts and a surfer stand to pass as a younger, much skinnier Charles nodding, if not for the mouthful of teeth, too big for his mouth. The man picks up a driftwood stick, stands, and marches toward Shane. He steps over little orange flags that appear to mark the foundation of a soon-to-be-built backyard, guest house, or a swimming pool. Shane puffs up, flexing his lats and traps, but the man keeps coming. Excuse me, the man says, you can't just cut through my property like this. Hey, screw. Boy interrupts him. Sorry, says Boy. We just want to get back to the street. Was trying to catch my dad's horse, but that fucker is too fast. Well, you're gonna have to go around, says the man. Shane looks both ways down the coastline. Backyard after backyard. There is no around. Around where, says Shane? Freaking Sunset Beach? We walked miles already looking for a place to cut through. The man jabs the end of his stick into the ground. This is private property, sir, he says. You people need to go back from whence you came. Boy, his eyes closed, is digging into both ears now like he's got some kind of terrible itch in each canal. If he's not going to dig into this howley instead of his ears, Shane will. He turns to the man, and if we don't, the man points his stick at Shane's chest and points it down the beach. He's like James Cook ordering his men to take the king of Hawaii hostage, pointing them in the right direction. He's like Lono, god of whatever, plants or rain or some other nature shit. Shane's just trying to work himself up as he balls his hands. This is how fighting is for him. He has to psych himself up and mentally focus. He has to visualize. What the mind can conceive, the body can achieve. Shane once saw those words on a poster of a mountain climber dangling one-handed from a snowy cliff. It's his mantra before every fight. Well, the 3 fights he's been in anyways, 2 of which were broken up before he could throw a second punch. The man, unafraid, eyes Shane. Again, he says, you need to go around. As you Hawaiians say, awe. Boy's fist smashes the man's cheek, and it's Shane who flinches. Boy's now sitting on the man's chest. More fists pound the man's face, the sick sound of bones breaking. The man starts to scream, so Boy puts one hand over his mouth while he mallets with the other. Boy is a starving shipwrecked sailor trying to crack open a coconut. But it's even more robotic than that, like he's one of those brainwashed Cold War wet boys trained to go off when they hear the code word. It dawns on him that Boy has always been like this since he's known him. Boy never has to psych himself up. Boy is always ready. When he figures that this howley had enough, Shane grabs Boy and yanks him up, but Boy tosses Shane into the bushes. Boy is now on the unconscious man, swinging away again. The precision, tense state pounding alarms Shane, and he gets up. A sharp pain in his ankle must have landed funny and sprained it. The man's bloody profile sags in the grass, the face scaffolding that once held it up crushed. All the big teeth look cracked or gone except one that's dangling from the man's top gum. Shane limps the Boy and grabs him again. This time a panting Boy doesn't fight Shane. He picks up the stick and spits. Your fucking dad, he says, panting, his face streaked with tears. This is what he wants. Boy hands Shane the stick, pulls out his cell phone and dials 911. Shane snatches the phone from him. Are you crazy, he says. We gotta get the fuck out of here. This is what he wants, Boy says again, tears already drying under the sun, now looking more like snail slime. Shane tugs Boy's arms. He takes a last look at the man, who is conscious now, groaning, half rolled over, and covering his face with his hands. Shane and Boy cut through the man's property and step onto the street. Shane using the stick to limp along, one arm around his brother's shoulder. Shane checks for passing cars. The coast is clear. Boy drags Shane back to Joe's house. Joe is Boy's adopted father. Shane's coughing and stumbling as Boy pulls him. If your dad has his way, says Boy, we wouldn't have been born. The stick finally breaks under Shane's weight and he falls on his ass. Boy pulls him up. It's way too easy for Boy to pull him up. Shane's 300 pounds, well 292 anyway. How strong is this skinny fucker? Nino wouldn't have been born either, says Boy. He's eyeing each renovated house they pass. Lots of surf racks, lots of Volvos, lots of bumper stickers that read, "Keep the North Shore country." Back at the house, the old men are gone. Boy's car is off its jack, new tire in place. The old tire sits on the porch alongside a gutted gas grill converted for charcoal cooking, 3 buckets of house paint primer, and a sack of plastic fold-out chairs. Joe appears from the backyard. He's sitting on Grover's back. Look who came back, says Joe. You gotta be shitting, he says Shane, glaring at the horse. He swears the animal is smiling at him. Boy sits Shane on the grass and rubs his face with both blood-crusted hands. Joe eyes Boy's hand, smiles, and slides off Grover. Joe takes Boy's hand and inspects it. I see bone, he says. You need stitches. Yo, in the house I got a scrape down the road, all kind lead paint. But let's take care of this first. Joe doesn't even ask how his hand got like that. Why do you do that for them? Boy asks as he tries to catch his breath. Shane, now curious. Joe winks. Figure all the lead dust and old fiberglass insulation I leave. Like poison the fuckers. Shit, sometimes get asbestos tiles under the carpet too. I think I might be in trouble, says Boy as he plops down by Shane. There's day-to-day smiles and there's once-in-a-lifetime smiles, and Joe's, missing teeth and all, looks bright enough to be immortalized in a box of Raisin Bran. Shane gets up and tests out his ankle. This is what I get for skipping calves at the gym, he says. Shane glances at Boy's knuckles, the skin sliced pink and white. Shane's never done that to his knuckles. Joe walks inside. Boy takes off his shirt and wraps his right hand like he's either stashing a weapon or assembling a club. He looks at Shane. How you got so big anyway? Shane wants to tell him he did it the real way. Malt carbo loading, post-case beer midnight runs to 24-hour fast food joints for half-a-pound burgers, plate lunches with all mac salad instead of rice. But the truth is Shane didn't want gout. Instead he lifted heavy, sometimes 2 a days, and consumed poi and great creatine shakes to the point of shitting purple. It was one of his business ideas before the paint gun obstacle course idea. He had a mock-out program, the healthy way. He had seen enough wannabes, most too skinny or fat, some without enough facial hair, that he figured he could make some cheddar off the idea. He wanted to tell Boy about it, but Boy's focus is on Joe, who's walking out of the house with a sewing kit in his hand. As Joe stitches Boy's knuckles, Shane watches in awe. You're rambled, he says. Gotta make do in the medical, says Joel, smiling as he punctures Boy's knuckles with a hook-shaped needle. You boys need to get out of the wide road before the cops come. Do you even know what happened? Asks Shane. Joe shrugs. He cracked some Richarli, right? Cracked is not the word Shane would use. How do you know? Says Shane. Joe looks at him. Because I feel like cracking them every day of my fucking life. Boy closes his eyes. I taught you good, says Joe. Taught you good. He looks up at the sky. This is only phase 1. Shane stands up and heads to Grover. The horse whinnies and takes 2 steps back. That's right, you fucker, Shane thinks. You better be scared. Hey, fat boy, stay the fuck away from my horse, says Joe. Shane looks at the horse and looks at Boy. Years of lifting, years of martial arts, all this weight he has on his brother, and he's still not sure if he can take him. Shane takes a step toward the horse. Surely, if he can drop a horse, he can drop a 190-pound man, no matter who he is. Shane pulls his arm back and unloads with everything he's got. Hey, what the fuck, yells Joe. The horse wobbles and drops to its knees. Shane rubs his fist and smiles. Maybe he can make back his wet boy code word. Before he can fully enjoy the discovery, Grover gets back up and snaps at Shane. Shane limps back. Grover steps forward and snaps again. Shane scurries to the truck and climbs on its roof. He feels it sink beneath him. But Joe doesn't care about the dent. He howls as Grover chomps at Shane. Boy, who's looking small and tired again, ignores the whole thing and looks down at his hands. All I want, says Boy. All I want is to be a regular guy. Why is it so fucking hard? The horse rears and slams its front hooves on the truck hood. It slams its hooves down again and again, shaking the truck as it tries to smash it into the ground. Shane rolls into the truck bed. The furious horse heads for him. Just as it's about to sink its teeth into Shane, Joe whistles. The horse whinnies and backs off. Joe grabs the horseback's rope and leads it to Boy. He puts his hand on Boy's head. Joe's got the horse trained like a dog. Hey, numbnut, says Joe. Anyone can false crack and do damage. That's all Boy did, Shane says, afraid to get down from the roof of his truck. No, says Joe. He grabs Boy's wrist and lifts his stitched hand. He didn't just false crack, he hit again and again and again. Boy yanks his arm from Joe and gets up. Shane never hit anyone more than once in his entire life. That's his problem. He needs someone in his life to teach him these things, and Boy, who is now heading to the house, Shane's always been too ashamed to ask him. To ask him would be to admit Boy can kick his ass. Did you teach him? Asks Shane. Joe says, never need to teach him nothing. Some people, born with it. Look at you, all slow and puppy with weak ankles. Can tell you wasn't, can smell it wasn't on you. Joe heads to the house, leaving Shane with a horse, Rooster, and the realization that for him to become the guy he wants to be, he needs to get dirty with a little bit of crazy. But he doesn't know anyone who can or will show him exactly how to ink that kind of war paint all over what Joe sees as his big fat face. sorry I didn't mention this earlier, is Boy is the tough guy, and Shane is the kid who was raised by the wealthy state senator, and it's sort of like there's weird sibling rivalry thing going on where Shane wants to be more like Boy because he's the sort of the rich towny guy, and then what Boy wants the power and the sort of wealth that Shane has. So they constantly butt heads about that. So so that scene, the context of that scene is this Shane wishing that he was more like his brother, which is of course misguided, but there are people who wish for that. Okay, just one more. So this one is a bit shorter. So another example of research that I did for this book was the social services thing. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the book is essentially, a lot of the book is about these three siblings, two brothers and the girl. And the girl ends up back with her mother. Now, the girl, Glory, makes a reappearance in the middle of the book. And by this time, she's living in Waimanalo, and she's in a very, very bad situation with her mother and her new stepfather. So she runs away from home. And she runs away, of all places, to Makaha, and decides that she wants to live on the beach there. But of course, sooner or later, the cops catch up with her. And so the cops pick her up, and then this is sort of what happens after that, what the process is like for a teenage runaway. The cops called her a PS, person in need of supervision, when they drove her past the Chinese restaurant and pulled up to the green detention home. The place looked even bigger from the inside than the outside. A lobby with a reception desk stocked with a rusty stapler, bent, recycled paper clips, and an actual working typewriter. There was a mini courtroom off to the side. Boys sat on mats while a man who looked and talked football coach tried to get them to see the light with drunk uncle words. You gotta think, he said. You gotta use your brain. Don't be like your father's uncles, brothers, and cousins. Think. Okay, sir, said one boy, a real teacher's pet. Call me uncle, the man said, as if calling him anything else was an insult. Glory spotted his tats and track marks as she was led past. She wondered if he had tried to get another job, like maybe driving a delivery truck or something similar, but this job, taking care of persons in need of supervision, was the only one he could get. The courtyard was tennis court green, the single-story windows covered by rusted grates. Boys walked single file on one side of the fence, girls on the other. One skinny boy who was talking to an uncle bounced on his toes and threw slow-motion punches, telling the story with his body. When a line of girls walked past, he stopped jumping and said, "Woo, baby, woo, woo, I love you, baby." He went back to his bouncing once they passed. After sleeping in a bed for the first time in months, Gloria was in the mini courtroom the next morning. The judge, an old man, sat behind the bench while he looked through a file. Gloria felt the hairs on her arms rise. She turned around. Her mother and Benny stepped inside the courtroom, wearing their baby luau vests. Benny in jeans, a faded golf shirt, and sunglasses perched on his forehead. Makana in a threadbare flower print dress, a wet bundle of curls sitting on her head. She had even showered and washed her hair. The judge put down the file and pushed his glasses up to his nose. "Look at your mother," he said, in a weird accent, an accent as foreign to Gloria as snow. "Look at your mother, you're making her sick." Gloria didn't look at her. Instead, she looked at another tweaker mother who walked in, coughed, and sat in the back row, picking at sores on her arms. "This one didn't shower. You gotta understand," said the judge to Gloria, "you are important. You are an important person. You have a future to think about." Gloria finally looked at Makana, whose eyes were locked on the judge, her head moving up and down as if she was in a prayer meeting or something. Benny was nodding too. Then he glanced at his watch. "We all want what's best for you," said the judge. Makana nodded in agreement. 30 minutes later, Makana was at the reception desk signing Gloria out. While Gloria marched in place and chewed on her fingernails, she could hear the judge talking to another girl. "Look at your mother," he said. "You're making her sick. You are important. You are an important person." And that's it. And that's real. So yeah, it's the same speech that they give to each kid that they deal with in family court. The irony, right? you're an important person, but I'm just going to give you this boilerplate nonsense when I speak to each and every one of you. So as you can tell, I mean, it's the stuff in this book is very political, very socially critical. It's sort of, I guess, when I was asked earlier today how I would describe it as the tattoo on steroids. Yeah, so I'm not holding back in this one. All in, I guess, the cliche, as the cliche goes. So that's just the sort of bits and pieces of it. Does anybody have any questions or anything like that?
Sometimes I write songs, and one time I gave 2 songs to my brothers, and then they called me all concerned and said, "Is everything okay? You seem kind of angry."
Yeah.
So, for your work, do you foresee happy in the future, or where does all this anger come from?
I think that it stems from, and it's not that, it's not like I walk around all angry all the time or anything like that. I think I consider myself a pretty nice guy, quiet, unassuming person, but I think it's not necessarily that, it's not necessarily anger that I'm walking around with, but it's anger that I've witnessed throughout my childhood, and sort of that reaction to I wrote dialogue in this book that goes something like this. There's the rich have lawyers and the poor have fists. So that I think that sort of encapsulates the sort of attitude that a lot of the people I grew up with had. Stepfather is to this, he's 67 and he still wants to fight every other day. So I think that that's part of it. It's not necessarily feeling it all the time. When I was younger, I probably felt it, but knowing it, I think I understand it. And that's the thing is when you don't have power, I mean, how else are you going to react but violently? And then you're dealing also with frustration and all of that. So yeah, and you get your props for that too. If you can kick ass, it's like Shane looking up the boy. It's like, wow, this is, and there's that image, and so it's not. I mean, part of this is criticism of that side of the island psychology too. Is sort of like, that's ridiculous. It's sort of like boy is admired because of it, and that also eggs it on to sort of like, oh, I am the man, so I'm going to do it even more. When he's first called Boy No Good, he's proud of it. That's a cool name, Boy No Good. He wants to live up to it.
Did you start writing in high school or college?
College. So not until graduate school. So I didn't really have any. There was no little kid dreams, up at night dreaming of becoming a writer or anything like that. It's sort of in a way accidental. I had been in college, and it wasn't until graduate school that I first started taking creative writing courses. And I, even at the time, I knew that, at least among my classmates, and of course from what I had read, as Mark mentioned earlier, the Asian American and Pacific literature, that I was doing something different. It was different from all of the other stuff that other people were doing. So that was encouraging. Yes.
What message are you trying to convey with your book, and who is your target audience?
I don't know if I'm trying to convey one overall big. I don't know. What do you think, Mark? What message am I trying to convey with this book? I mean, I guess part of it, on a sort of social level, is it's almost, I don't want to say apocalyptic, but man, this place is changing, and I feel. It sounds cliche to say it. It's sort of like every generation says it about the previous, the next generation and all of that kind of stuff. But I really do believe it's changing. I believe that when you combine things like globalization, the internet, when you combine that with more and more people sort of flooding you have demographics, and Hawaii is interesting because, and a lot of places are probably similar, but you have these sort of pockets, these socioeconomic pockets, and in Hawaii they're sort of all squeezed together, and everybody's fine as long as everybody minds their own business. You know, you can be an Outrigger Canoe Club member and not get flack, as long as you stay with your Outrigger Canoe Club people and you stay on, you know, your side. But once there's crossover, that can be explosive, and I think that's largely what this book is about, because you have a politician who's starting to cross over into that and starting to affect this other segment of the population lives. And then, I'm sorry, what was the second part of the question?
Who is your target audience for this?
Anybody who will read it. I don't know. It's not. I don't. I think. I mean, part of me. I think a part of me. Honestly, and this you can get yourself into trouble by doing this, because obviously, goal number one is to write a good story. You have to do that. That has to be goal number one. But I also think a part of me is getting a little bit teacherly in the book. I mean, it's almost as if I guess part of me wants younger people to read it, to sort of get a sort of better understanding of what this place is like, why it's like that, and what kind of changes are coming in. But other than that, yeah, anybody will read it. It's fine with me. Yeah.
This isn't really a question, it's more so a statement, but your book is actually in prisons as well. One of my ex-boyfriends was in jail and he read the tattoo while he was there. And it kind of changed his perspective, and like he told me after reading the book, it was like he didn't want to be there anymore. And it kind of, like, even though he's experienced it already himself, that reading the book was like, oh crap, this is really what it's like.
Mhm.
And if I'm stay here, it's gonna be like this forever.
Yeah.
And he was the reason why I read your first book. And I was like, wow. And it kind of changed my opinion of Hawaii too, because I wasn't really in that kind of group, you know? I
Mhm.
was, for some reason, we ended up together, and it was really odd. And he was the troublemaker boy,
Mhm.
and I was the goody good, you know? And somehow we got together, and it was a new perspective for me, you know, to see that side of Hawaii. And I didn't see that before. And I think your book does do good. And, you know, we're in our young, early 20s, and it does make a difference. I mean, he's now out of jail, and he's going to school now. And so I think I just wanted to convey that you are making a difference to our generation. And
Thank you. I mean, that's just about the best thing I can ever hear about any book that I write, that it actually affects people in a positive way. I mean, that makes me really happy and really proud that the book does that sometimes. So thank you. Thanks. Other questions?
How about the donut? You know, that's the
Yeah.
thematic thing is
That's, I mean,
despite how this thing, like, what you heard sounds, I mean, this book is like kind of a love letter to this place.
yeah.
This poor thing is disappeared.
Yeah. Yeah, and it becomes, and again, I mean, it's sort of, like Mark calls it the donut, and it's this idea that, and I know that this isn't exclusive to Oahu, but I would say that it's more apparent in Oahu than in any other island, that the island the coastal area of the island is basically being gentrified and bought up, and of course that's why property prices go up astronomically and all of that as people flood in and buy all of this. And it's like a donut, and the people who have been here for generations are getting sort of squeezed in the middle. And that squeeze is also the squeeze is so tight that some of them are popping out and going to Vegas, going to the mainland and all of that. And it's just, and yeah, that's the donut. And that's what Boy No Good is about as well. Is sort of like, that's what's happening. And the main character is flipping out because of it. And sometimes he feels like he's the only one who sees it, and he's the only one willing to fight it. And the way he goes about it sometimes it's questionable, but it's sort of the gist of the book is the anger that this character feels about this donut phenomenon.
Yes, Chris, how's
Yes.
the movie thing going? Are you have any, everyone always asks me when they read the book, hey, when's it gonna be a movie?
The tattoo? No, no word yet. I mean, it's weird. So, just for a little bit of background, so the first book that I wrote, the movie rights were purchased several years ago, and it's nothing has happened yet. It's never gone into pre-production or anything like that. Some weird sort of random names have been associated with it that people who might be interested. For anyone, like people as far ranging as Mario Van Peebles and James Franco. I don't know what James Franco would do with it or whatever, but you know, I don't know if he wanted to produce or direct or something. But they still have it out there. I mean, ultimately the challenge is this, and it's because I've sort of gotten into the movie stuff outside of the tattoos. So you know, I've written screenplays. I wrote a feature screenplay that premiered at TIFF in 2011, and it was nominated for Best Film at the LA Asian Film Festival and stuff like that. So you know, I've been writing screenplays for a while too. So I feel like I know more about it and know more about the business side. And ultimately, the challenge of making the tattoo into a movie is that step one is to write the screenplay. Step two is to find a bankable actor who will sign on to the project. Now, I can't think. I mean, it's sort of, you know, I was joking with the students earlier when I was having this discussion, and I said, name me one sort of bankable or famous Japanese American actor in his 20s. And then my next question, as a matter of fact, name me one bankable Japanese actor alive today.
Sunny Chiba.
Yes, oh yeah, but yeah, I'm sorry, but the main character in the tattoo's in his 20s, so yeah. Yeah. So that's I mean, that's the challenge. I don't know how they negotiate. I don't know how they're gonna do that. I mean, obviously, I mean, they're probably gonna have to find an unknown if they want to get serious about it, and you know, a lot of movie people talk a lot about that, and it's possible, and it's happened. I mean, I'm sure you know, there's that movie Sugar about Dominican baseball player. I mean, it was, well, let's just get the guy, and I think that's essentially what they're gonna have to do. Is, you know what, we just have to find the guy. So they have to find Ken out there somewhere.
But someone holds those rights right now, you
Yeah.
can't get them back or anything, that's.
Yeah, so they have it now. It's a little bit different. So nobody can touch the book as long as they hold the rights.
And they have them for how long?
I'm not sure. I'd have to talk to the publisher. I forget what we signed as far as time. But then you know, the other thing that I was talking about earlier, as far as you know, my whole. I mean, I'm not pessimistic or anything like that, but it's a long shot. I mean, it's like that Sidney Pollack story about, you know, after he passed away, they go into his office and what do they find? They find stacks and stacks of screenplays and novels that he, you know, bought the rights to and all of that. And it's the majority of movie ideas, the vast majority, don't actually get made into film. So even the indie stuff that I did, I felt very fortunate that I got to experience that.
What was the title of that one?
The-
2011?
Paradise Broken, horrible title. My original title was just Broke, but the producer felt like we need to Hawaii it up, man. We need to throw Paradise or something in there, man.
Paradise.
And Paradise, really? All right.
Can I ask you one other thing, Chris?
Yeah.
If there's any aspiring writers now, you're teaching full-time
At HCC.
at HCC,
Yeah.
and has now 4 or 5 books that brought you any economic security where are you going to be continuing teaching forever, or are you going to be able to step away from it?
I bought a house. I have a kid. These are things that probably require my teaching for the foreseeable future. You know, as far as being able to live off of writing, geez, you know, maybe if I lived in a little studio and put it around on a bicycle or something, I could do it. But and it's also very inconsistent. You know, so one year, so for example, for the screenplay stuff, you know, I got a decent chunk. I mean, not huge or anything, but then how often am I getting paid to write screenplays? So you know, I'll have slow years that are more busy than others. But no, I don't see myself not teaching anytime soon.
But you found a way to set aside some time for your artistic endeavor.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that involves maybe some, what's one bit of practical advice that someone wants to?
For me, I mean, writing is impossible to do after work or in the evenings because I wasn't, it wasn't like that when I was young. You know, that whole idea that when you're young, oh, I'm a night person, I'm not a morning person. You know, you stay up till 3 in the morning, it's not a big deal. But as I've gotten older, I find that the only time that I can really write is in the morning. And what I do is I wake up, wake my daughter up, make her breakfast, and then, you know, take her to school. And then as soon as I come back home, before I have to do anything else, I set aside 2 or 3 hours to write. And I try to stay consistent with that. And that's been everything. I mean, that's just being on that schedule has upped my just production tremendously in the last 3 or 4 years. So, you know, hopefully I can stick with that. And I already have another book idea, so I'll be working on another one. But yeah, it's ultimately it's about arithmetic, right? It's sort of like imagine that you write 2 pages a day. Well, guess what? In a year, you're gonna have a draft of a novel. It's about actually doing it, actually sitting there and getting it done.
So in conjunction with that, what is your experience of the publishing? This is from Mutual. You want to give any advice to how to get stuff published?
Yeah, sure. I would say that it's scary now. I mean, it's scarier than it's been ever before because I mean, we really only have like Barnes and Noble now. Borders is gone. Walden's is gone. But I mean, it depends what type of book you're writing, and I mean that's really that's the biggest issue. So, for example, if you are writing something that's regional, like what I wrote, stuff that's set in Hawaii, I have more options. I mean, I can play the game, I can play the find the agent game, the mail game, and try to get published through a national publisher, or I can just publish regionally through a publishing company that's in Hawaii. Now, for me, I've been lucky because I've been doing that. I've been going the regional route, and with 2 of my books, a publishing company in New York picked it up with the Tattoo and the Queen of Tears. Soho Press picked those up. So just because you publish regionally doesn't mean it's like game over. You'll never get national publication. So I've been lucky in that regard. And the other thing that I will say that's sort of a virtue of regional publishing is that your books tend to stay in bookstores longer. Not that there's that many bookstores left, but there was a time when, or I mean, this is what happens now with nationally published book. You get, let's say, a Penguin publishes a book, send it off to the bookstore. I mean, if that sucker doesn't start selling in a month, guess what? They're sending it right back to the publisher. And with regional books, like with Hawaii books, that's not necessarily the case. So you can still, you know, you can go to basically books and still find a book of mine that was published a number of years ago, and it's not a problem. So, you know, so that's one advantage. Now, sometimes you're trapped. I mean, it's sort of like, okay, if you're going to write a book about zombies, guess what? There's no zombie land, so there's no regional publisher for that. So you're gonna have to shoot for national. And if you're gonna write your sci-fi zombie novel, then that's really all you can do. I mean, but there are certain publishers that deal with sci-fi more than others. But essentially, what you're gonna want to do is you're gonna want to go the route of finding an agent, because the agents are the gatekeepers. They are the middlemen that sit between publishers and writers. They filter, basically. They're in their, I guess in their minds, they're quality filters. It's sort of like we're not going to let certain books pass, most books pass. We're only going to cherry pick the ones that we feel have a good shot of selling a lot of copies and garnering interest, and then they take those to the publisher. So it's in sort of, yeah. It's like, I mean, in a way, and I'm not saying that you write to try to get famous, but it's kind of like trying to get famous or something. I mean, it's that long shot, you know. It's sort of like, waking up one day and saying, I think I want to be Tom Cruise, and then it's that many hoops and that many challenges. But if you keep pushing,